When was the last time you cracked an egg into a hot pan and watched the white instantly disintegrate into a watery puddle sloshing across the Teflon? You pay $6, $7, maybe $8 a carton at Coles or Woolies, expecting a proud, plump yolk on a firm cushion of albumin, but you get an insipid mess that shatters if you look at it sideways. That puddle is no accident. It is the visible symptom of an industrial grocery cartel stripping the substance out of your breakfast while systematically jacking up the price. By the end of this investigation, you will know more about the egg aisle than 90% of Australian shoppers. I will show you how mega retailers manipulated legal loopholes to redefine animal welfare into a profit engine. We will crack open the chemical dye trick that turns lifeless yolks into an artificial neon sunset using industrial feed additives. We will break down 9 specific egg cartons sitting on shelves right now that you should leave behind, then reveal 4 honest options that genuinely deserve your cash. Stay with me to the end because the most egregious offender is not a budget no-name brand, but one of the most trusted premium labels in the country, charging champagne prices for industrial mediocrity. To see through the smoke and mirrors, you have to understand how an egg is made inside a hen. A high-quality egg is a direct biological mirror of the bird's metabolism, diet, and stress. The thick white, known scientifically as dense albumin, is packed with overmucin proteins holding its structure together like a coiled spring. When a hen lives a low-stress life foraging on pasture in natural sunlight, her oviduct produces viscous albumin and a shell reinforced with dense calcium carbonate crystals, requiring a solid whack to crack. The industrial reality in Australia is a completely different beast. Commercial operations treat hens like biological vending machines, cramming tens of thousands of birds into mammoth sheds. When birds are stressed, fed cheap grain bulkers, and deprived of foraging, their bodies pump out thin whites that break down in days. Shells become so papery that microfractures let moisture evaporate, degrading freshness before the carton reaches the shelf. The egg industry also figured out decades ago that shoppers associate rich golden orange yolks with outdoor vitality. Instead of letting hens forage outside on grass and bugs to build up natural carotenoids, industrial producers toss synthetic pigment additives like canthaxanthin and marigold extract into the commercial feed. They use a literal colour fan called the DSM yolk colour fan to dial yolk shade up or down like a paint swatch at Bunnings. You are paying a premium for a cosmetic paint job applied in a feed trough. Then came the greatest regulatory bait and switch in modern retail, the National Stocking Density Standard. Under Australian consumer definitions, corporate producers can legally pack up to 10,000 birds onto a single hectare and still slap the words free range across the carton. That is 1 bird per single square metre of dirt, a density so suffocating that most hens never make it through the tiny shed pop holes to see daylight. The industry took an idyllic pastoral image and turned it into high-density feedlots, charging you double for the privilege. Let us get into the countdown of 9 egg brands and supermarket lines on Australian shelves that you should seriously think twice about buying. Opening our list at number 9 is Woolworths free-range eggs, 700 grams. Woolworths is Australia's largest grocery retailer, and their generic green carton sits front and centre in thousands of stores as an ethical, everyday staple. But flip the box over and read the fine print. Outdoor stocking density up to 10,000 hens per hectare, the legal ceiling in Australia. A Choice consumer investigation exposed how supermarket private labels use this maximum density to operate massive sheds with tens of thousands of birds. When you crack one into a skillet, the white frequently runs thin, separating into a runny outer ring that cooks in seconds while the centre remains snotty. At $5.20 a carton, or 43 cents an egg, you are paying a free-range premium for an industrial feedlot with an open back door that most hens never reach. A customer review on Product Review noted, half the carton had paper-thin shells that shattered into the pan, and the whites had zero body. Woolies' private label free-range trades genuine hen welfare for corporate volume. Moving along the aisle, number 8 brings us to Coles free-range eggs, 700 grams. Coles battles Woolies in an endless price war, presenting their own brand free-range line as a responsible choice backed by internal welfare standards. Yet just like its rival, Coles relies heavily on the 10,000 hens per hectare ceiling. When bird flu biosecurity housing orders swept across Victoria and New South Wales, commercial flocks were kept indoors for months. Yet these cartons remained on shelves sporting the exact same free-range branding and price tag. In the pan, you get inconsistent yolk heights and watery whites. Costing around $5.30 per dozen, or 44 cents per egg, it is barely a step above cage production in real physical density. An agricultural welfare researcher from the University of Sydney pointed out that high-density shed operations severely limit natural dust bathing and foraging behaviours regardless of pastoral marketing. Coles' own brand free range is industrial efficiency dressed in a bright red label. If you are already seeing how the supermarket duopoly plays these games, hit that subscribe button right now because the corporate tricks get far more blatant from here on out. Coming in at number 7 is Farm Sunrise Free Range, widely stocked across independent retailers and regional IGA supermarkets. Owned by large-scale commercial egg producers, Farm Sunrise relies on imagery of bright dawn sunshine over open pastures to convey pastoral simplicity. But look past the cartoon sun and you find standard commercial high-density production. The ACCC has repeatedly investigated commercial suppliers for misleading consumers with packaging that implies pastoral freedom while operating intensive shed-based systems. When you cook them, the yolks often sit flat and pale, lacking the rich density of pastured eggs, while the albumin spreads out into a transparent sheet. At $5.80 for a dozen, or nearly 49 cents an egg, you are handing over hard-earned cash for independent branding that sources from the same industrial supply chain. As one shopper on an Australian food forum put it, "Thought I was supporting a small local farm, but the quality was watery and the yolks broke instantly." Farm Sunrise uses folksy names to mask massive commercial scale. Taking the 6th spot is Community Co. free-range eggs, available throughout the Metcash IGA network. The Community Co. brand promises that every purchase gives back to local community programs, wrapping your breakfast in a warm blanket of charity. But charity marketing does not improve the structural quality of an egg. The hens producing these lines are kept under standard commercial stocking densities, and when the supply chain stretches across interstate transit, freshness rapidly deteriorates. The whites break down quickly, losing the thick over-mucin layer, leaving you with poached eggs that dissolve into wispy strings in simmering water. At $6.20 a carton, or 52 cents an egg, you are paying a heavy premium for community goodwill that masks standard factory-tier albumin. Consumer advocate groups have highlighted that emotional branding frequently distracts shoppers from checking stocking densities on the carton. Community Co. proves that a feel-good donation on the front does not stop your fried egg from turning into a runny puddle on the plate. Landing at number 5 is Manning Valley Naturally Free Range. Manning Valley is one of the most visible mid-tier brands in Australian supermarkets, trading on the lush reputation of the New South Wales mid-north coast with claims of blue skies and natural living. However, industry disclosures and stocking audits reveal they operate at standard high-density commercial tiers of up to 10,000 birds per hectare across their massive production sheds. When you crack a Manning Valley egg into a pan, the shell often cracks with a brittle crunch rather than a clean snap, and the albumin lacks the thick viscosity needed for a proper scramble. Retailing at $7.10 for a 700-gram dozen, or almost 60 cents an egg, it sits at a price point that should guarantee true low-density pasture, but delivers commercial shed consistency instead. A food writer for a major Australian publication observed, "The branding screams pristine valley, but the egg in the pan behaves exactly like a standard high-density supermarket staple." Manning Valley Naturally is commercial egg farming wearing a pristine valley postcard dot. At number 4, we have to look at generic caged and barn eggs, including budget staples like Essentials and Black and Gold sold across Woolworths, Coles and IGA. These cartons are the cheapest protein in the store, sitting around $3.80 to $4.20 a carton, representing the absolute baseline of industrial poultry confinement. While Australian poultry welfare standards are gradually phasing out traditional battery cages over the coming decade, millions of hens across Australia remain confined in multi-tier battery cages or high-density indoor barns with zero access to natural forage or sunlight. The eggs reflect this chronic physiological stress. Paper-thin shells that crumble into your mixing bowl, pale watery yolks, and almost no structural albumin. Humane Society International has consistently documented that confined cage systems generate severe skeletal weakness and feather loss in laying hens. If your budget demands buying these, nobody should judge you for feeding your family, but understand that every cent saved comes directly from the total mechanical industrialization of the animal. Number 3 takes us out of the supermarket aisle to a quirky Aussie tradition, roadside honesty box eggs. You are driving through the Adelaide Hills, the Sunshine Coast hinterland or regional Victoria, and you spot a chalkboard advertising farm-fresh eggs in a timber box with an honesty tin. It feels authentic, but consumer protection agencies and regional councils have repeatedly issued alerts about dishonest operators. Shrewd roadside sellers have been caught buying bulk pallets of commercial caged or high-density seconds from wholesale markets, transferring them into unbranded cardboard cartons and charging city tourists $8 or $9 a dozen under the guise of local hobby farm produce. The eggs end up having thin shells and stale, spreading whites that have been sitting in the sun without refrigeration. Food safety officers emphasize that unmarked roadside eggs lack traceability and salmonella testing guarantees. An honesty box with no producer identification is an unregulated loophole for reselling wholesale clearance eggs at boutique prices. Stepping into the luxury bracket, number 2 on our list is macro-certified organic free-range eggs, sold exclusively at Woolworths. The macro organic label is Woolies' crown jewel for health-conscious shoppers, wrapped in earthy tones and organic stamps that justify a steep retail price of roughly $9.20 a carton, working out to over 76 cents per egg. But here is the uncomfortable truth. Organic certification governs feed ingredients and medication rules, not necessarily an idyllic open-field lifestyle. While stocking densities are lower than commercial 10,000 bird limits, large-scale commercial organic sheds still house thousands of hens where dominant birds block access to pasture exits. In the frying pan, the texture and albumin height are frequently indistinguishable from standard free-range eggs that cost $3 less per carton. A verified buyer review stated, "Expected a towering, rich country egg for almost $10, but got pale yolks and whites that spread right to the edge of my pan." Macro-organic is an expensive exercise in buying corporate compliance rather than extraordinary breakfast quality. By now, if you are looking at your fridge with a bit of suspicion, make sure to like the video and drop a comment below letting me know which egg brand you currently buy. Finally, we arrive at the absolute number 1 offender on Australian shelves. Sunny Queen Farms Golden Yolks. Sunny Queen is arguably the most famous, historically beloved egg brand in Australia, instantly recognisable by its cheerful, smiling cartoon egg wearing sunglasses and decades of wholesome family advertising. Their Golden Yolks range is sold on one primary seductive promise: intensely vibrant, deep orange yolks that look like a sunrise on your toast. But that sunset glow is almost entirely an industrial feed trick. Sunny Queen achieves that deep hue not through free-ranging on wild pasture, but by dosing commercial feed blends with concentrated pigment additives like marigold flower extract, paprika olea resin, and synthetic canthaxanthin. Independent lab tests and consumer advocates from Choice have highlighted that yolk pigmentation is easily manipulated in feed troughs and provides zero indication of superior hen welfare, protein quality, or elevated nutritional value. When you cook a Sunny Queen Golden Yolk, you get a strikingly bright orange center surrounded by the exact same thin, watery commercial white that sloshes across the pan. Retailing at a massive premium of around $8.50 per dozen, or 71 cents an egg, you are paying top dollar solely for a cosmetic feed formulation calibrated on a chemical color fan. As an agricultural food scientist noted in a poultry nutrition study, pigment additives are added purely to manipulate consumer visual perception without changing the underlying biological welfare of the bird. Sunny Queen Golden Yolks is the ultimate triumph of visual marketing over genuine quality, selling you an engineered sunset in a cardboard box. Right, here comes the part that made watching this far worth it. We have waded through the industrial feedlot tricks, fake marketing buzzwords, and chemically dyed yolks, so now let us shine a bright light on the brands that are genuinely doing things properly. These are the producers who respect the animal, respect the land, and deliver an egg that will completely transform what you cook on a Sunday morning. First up, representing the smart, everyday ethical choice that will not break the bank, is ALDI Lodge Farms free-range eggs. ALDI has quietly rewritten the rules of discount shopping in Australia by cutting out flashy marketing campaigns and passing savings directly back to the customer. While many supermarket generic brands push outdoor stocking limits right up to the legal ceiling of 10,000 birds per hectare, ALDI has consistently partnered with reputable regional suppliers who maintain transparent standards and reliable quality controls across their network. When you crack an ALDI Lodge Farms egg into a hot cast iron skillet, you immediately notice a distinct structural difference compared to other budget options. The thick inner white clings tight around the yolk instead of instantly sloshing away into a watery puddle, and the shell breaks with a crisp, solid snap. Retailing at roughly $4.90 for a 700-gram dozen, which breaks down to around 41 cents per egg, it is cheaper than major supermarket private labels while consistently delivering superior freshness and shell thickness. A recent blind product review by consumer testing panels highlighted ALDI's egg range as one of the best value-for-money staples in the country, outperforming several mid-tier brands that charge $2 more. If you are feeding a family on a strict grocery budget and want honest, dependable quality without paying for corporate brochures, ALDI Lodge Farms is the smartest everyday buy in the supermarket aisle. Stepping up into the true pasture-raised category, our second recommendation is Honest Eggs Company. Born out of the rolling pastures of Victoria's Goulburn Valley, Honest Eggs Company was founded with a radically transparent mission to completely reject the high-density shed model that dominates the industry. Instead of locking thousands of birds inside massive sheds with theoretical outdoor access, Honest Eggs Co. uses mobile sheds continuously moved across fresh green pastures, maintaining an astonishing stocking density of fewer than 300 hens per hectare. That is less than 3% of the legal commercial free-range limit. Because these birds spend their entire daylight lives outdoors scratching through clean grass, chasing grasshoppers, and foraging for natural seeds, their biological health shines through in the pan. The albumen stands up tall and proud in a distinct dome-shaped mound that holds its shape flawlessly when poaching, while the yolk possesses a rich, buttery flavor with a natural golden hue that comes purely from genuine outdoor foraging rather than synthetic additives. They retail around $9.50 per dozen, or approximately 79 cents an egg. That is undeniably a premium price, but you are paying directly for regenerative farming practices, mobile pasture trailers, and an uncompromising level of animal welfare. A sustainable agriculture researcher at Charles Sturt University praised their open-range rotation system as a gold standard model for ethical poultry farming in Australia. If you care deeply about regenerative farming and want to taste the undeniable difference of a truly pastured egg, Honest Eggs Co. is worth every single cent. Next on our trusted list is Farm Pride pasture-raised eggs, widely stocked across major Australian supermarkets including Woolworths, Coles, and independent IGAs. Farm Pride has been an established name in Australian agriculture for decades, but their dedicated pasture-raised range represents a serious certified commitment to higher welfare standards. Certified under strict pasture-raised guidelines with a maximum stocking density of 750 hens per hectare, these birds have continuous, unhindered access to expansive outdoor pastures where they can roam, dust bathe, and forage naturally under open skies. The difference in the kitchen is immediate. The shells are thick and robust, fortified by natural mineral intake, and the yolks have a deep, velvety texture that emulsifies into homemade mayonnaise or hollandaise with incredible richness and stability. At around $7.80 per dozen, or roughly 65 cents an egg, they sit squarely in the mid-range sweet spot, offering genuine pasture-raised welfare for only $1 or $2 more than standard industrial free-range cartons. If you want a dependable, widely accessible pasture-raised egg that you can grab during your regular supermarket run without visiting a specialty grocer, Farm Pride pasture-raised hits the absolute mark. Finally, the pinnacle of artisanal egg production in Australia is Ellerslie free-range pasture-raised, available at select Woolworths, Harris Farm markets, and premium independent grocers. Operating out of pristine country pastures in Queensland, Ellerslie blends traditional animal husbandry with strict environmental stewardship. Their hens forage freely across open pastures with low stocking densities, sheltered by purpose-built mobile shade trailers and protected by guardian dogs. When you crack an Ellerslie egg, the yolk stands so high and firm you could almost pinch it with your fingers without breaking the vitelline membrane, delivering a clean, sweet, deeply satisfying flavor that will instantly remind you of old-fashioned country farm breakfasts. Retailing at approximately $8.80 per dozen, or 73 cents an egg, it is a premium product aimed at home cooks, foodies, and conscious consumers who demand perfection in their ingredients. An independent culinary review panel ranked Ellerslie as a benchmark for restaurant-grade poaching and frying. If your budget allows for the best of the best, Ellerslie delivers uncompromising excellence from shell to yolk. Now that you know exactly what is happening behind the scenes, here is your practical field guide to Woolworths, Coles, ALDI, or Harris Farm, and picking a winner every single time without getting scammed by clever marketing. First, flip the carton over and look for the specific outdoor stocking density number printed on the back or side panel. If it says anything close to 10,000 hens per hectare, leave it on the shelf because that is industrial feedlot scale disguised as outdoor freedom. Second, look for the words pasture-raised with a verified stocking density of 1,500 hens per hectare or fewer, which guarantees the birds actually have space to forage under open skies. Third, treat terms like farm fresh, naturally grain-fed, country fresh, and golden yolk as major red flags, because these are completely unregulated marketing buzzwords invented purely to sell cheap eggs at inflated prices. Fourth, do not pay extra money purely for an intensely dark orange yolk, because that color is easily manufactured using synthetic feed pigments and marigold extracts in a feed trough, rather than being an honest indicator of higher nutrition. Fifth, check for third-party certifications like Certified Organic, PROA, or pasture-raised on open fields, rather than trusting self-regulated supermarket stamps. Sixth, gently shake the carton in the aisle. If you feel liquid sloshing around inside the shells, the eggs are already stale and the internal membranes have broken down. The fundamental takeaway from this investigation is remarkably simple. The modern commercial egg industry is engineered to sell you an image of open green pastures and wholesome farm vitality while running high-density industrial sheds that cut production costs to the absolute bone. To stop being a victim of supermarket marketing, you have to shift your mindset and ignore the cheerful cartoons, idyllic countryside illustrations, and sunset promises on the front of the box. Look straight at the hard data, the stocking density, the certification, and the physical integrity of the shell. Thank you so much for watching and for demanding better quality on your plate. If this video opened your eyes, please share it with your family and friends, because almost everyone you know is currently overpaying for watery eggs and deserve to know the truth. Drop a comment below and tell me, which egg brand is sitting in your fridge right now, and which supermarket product should we investigate next? Make sure to check out our deep dive into Australian olive oils linked right on screen. Stay sharp, check the density number, and protect your breakfast.